Go. All right. So we like to start off these calls with the win. And I will start out with a win is that I am done with day one of my 4th reset since having a baby. It's I think my 7th one total, but yeah, finishing up with my restore right now. And it just feels good because this is actually, I'm pretty sure the cleanest day one reset I have done probably since the first one. So because I was gone all day at a seminar, and so I had no opportunity to grab anything extra. And because I usually will grab nuts or I'll grab an apple and all that, or carrots, and yet didn't have anything besides what was in the box today. So I'm proud of that. Who else wants to share a win from the past week? You can also put it in the comments. You can put it in the chat too if you're not able to talk. Oh.
I think my win is that I got my vitamins from for the first time, I guess. And so I'm trying something new to try and get out of the funk I've been in. We're going into the winter months where things are dark and dreary, and that's never good for me. So I'm trying to be a little bit proactive this season.
Excellent. Yes, be proactive. I love that.
I'm solar powered, and the sun is about to go away, which means I lose it.
Do all that you can. Yeah. Who else has a win?
I'll go. Sorry, I'm in the middle of cooking dinner, so if it's loud, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I am finally feeling better after a nasty week with COVID. So this last week, I'm finally feeling good, back to normal, and not in bed. And I maintained keeping all of my supplements up, even through all of it, trying to get better as fast as I could. I think it definitely did help, for sure. And I'm back on my regular regimen, which feels really good. So that's mine.
Yes, that is a huge win. All right. I'm going to talk about some of that immune system stuff that I learned today, what helped you get over that, Heidi. So and it's going to help us all with getting into the winter months, if it hasn't already. So I know with kids getting back in school, usually like before I started using these products, about 2 weeks after school started, 1 or 2 weeks after school started, illnesses would come into the house, even if it was just a cold, we would all get sick. And hasn't happened this year. Arlen, my baby, he got a head cold, his little man cold. That's the only thing that came in our house since school started. So, and he's still been building up his immune system. So that's not a surprise. Susan, Deadrian, either of you want to chime in with the win? If you can.
Well, I'm recouping from moving.
Hi.
So I'm
Excellent, Susan. Yes, you moved. You're recovering. Less and less pain every day. That is a win.
Yes.
And go ahead. And Paula, what were you going to say?
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say I was here.
Yay! I'm glad you are. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, so I went to an all-day training. Here's well, you're not gonna be able to read it anyways, but the handout they gave, and it was understanding the gut-brain axis about stress, appetite, digestion, and mood. And this professor, he has his PhD, so too, that talked about it, he studies more on the neuroscience side of things. And so he actually has research right now going on with PTSD and gut health, helping with PTSD specifically, but he's been involved in lots and lots of research and also has done his own research, which he shares, or research of other people on the topics. And so he covered about how the gut is referred to as the second brain, and that's just because of the lining that our gut has and the signals that are given off from that lining with the vagus nerve to the brain and vice versa. So the vagus nerve sends signals from the brain to our gut, and our gut sends signals to the brain. So it goes back and forth. And then he talked about how the microbiome of our gut affects that second brain, because that lining of our gut is only a single cell. And I had forgotten about that with my education as a dietitian, that it is so thin that it is only a single cell width that separates our gut lining into the rest of our body. And we have a mucus lining along that single cell layer. And that is our microbiome. That's where the bacteria live. And one thing that, this isn't something that he shared, but about with our ProBio 5, how it has the chitinase enzyme that breaks down Candida yeast. The Candida albicans yeast, invade that lining and created their own film. And so, again, just thinking about the physiology of it and how thin that barrier is between the inside of our gut, where the outside world comes in, and then the rest of our body. It's no wonder that if it's not in good shape, it can wreak a lot of havoc. And so that's what he talked about today, was about the different ways that if your gut's not healthy, it impacts the rest of your body, and how you need to, it's a holistic approach. So it's not just throwing probiotics is going to fix all your problems, but which probiotics you use make a difference, how diverse your diet is makes a difference. But the probiotics themselves specifically create a product, butyrate, that the cells that line our gut need that butyrate to actually live. And so if you have a round of antibiotics, you're actually eliminating some of the energy, the butyrate sources that make your gut lining healthy, make it strong. But if you have another infection that's going on, that also, if it's killing off the bacteria, the good bacteria that produce the butyrate, then it's going to make your gut not as strong. And so butyrate producing probiotics was key on there. And that is something that I when he went over specific strains of probiotics, our products do have. I was right there in the front of the I was in the front row, and I was looking up things on my phone to make sure that Plexus all fell in the line with things that he was talking about. But that mucus layer where the bacteria live, if it's not well populated, like if it's not a good garden, then it just becomes degraded, and microbes can actually rush through. And so this was a pretty cool thing that he talked about. He said that when cortisol gets high, and cortisol is natural part of us. It actually has been created to keep us alive. We have norepinephrine rushes in when there's fight or flight mode. So when we get a stress that we need to quickly respond, quick energy, norepinephrine is released from our central nervous system. And then cortisol happens after. It takes a little bit longer for it to be pumped into the system, but its purpose is to affect our metabolism and rush glucose into the system. So norepinephrine is the quick energy, while cortisol makes glucose rush into our system. And then it's kind of like, there's a chain of events where it then will create I said norepinephrine. What is the other one? The one that we call adrenaline. It's just normal epinephrine.
Yeah, just epinephrine.
Just epinephrine, yeah. And so when the cortisol though is in our system for a long time. Glucose is in our system for a long time. Then insulin rushes in, and that stress signal over time actually triggers microbes to then rush into, like, charge our gut lining because they're getting cues that, oh, the system's weak. And so that's why you can, like, nothing really can change in your life except for stress. You'll have higher cortisol and you'll get sick, even though nothing else changed. And that's just pretty crazy that he said that bacteria acts that way, that they will sense a change in the chemistry and they'll get all excited and actually rush the barrier when normally they wouldn't. And that's why if you're stressed because of work, if you're stressed because you're not getting enough sleep, you will get sick more often. And so and doing what you can to manage cortisol levels and manage stress really was kind of the overall message that he gave, like, even at the end. And so he talked about, having your gut be healthy as possible can help manage your stress, but but in inflammation too, the high levels of cortisol always floating around in your body makes inflammation be triggered more. And especially when those bacteria rush through, that does trigger your immune response, because you're having, outside pathogens finally rush through and break through your gut barrier, the gut lining. So, and that's essentially what leaky gut is.
Doesn't that
Go ahead.
Okay, doesn't that cause autoimmune problems too?
Mm-hmm. Yep. When you're in that state for a longer time than we were intended to be, autoimmune disorders come in play, because again, your immune system is elevated, it's excited, it's running an overdrive. And so an autoimmune problem is just your immune system is starting to degrade other parts of your body that, normally wouldn't happen. But I mean, it's a they're like warriors out there, trying to not scavenge, but just trying to attack whatever they can. And unfortunately, they will attack good cells along with the bad. And if it's super, elevated, it's going to attack the bad cells and make our body not work like it's supposed to. So yeah. And that even leads to the metabolic syndrome. And when he was listing off, like, all the different conditions that are related to metabolic syndrome, so many of them look familiar with what we know Plexus helps people with. So like migraines, we did a call. So if you need any of these links, I can share them with you all. I've saved them, but like, we did a call about migraines where, some people gave testimonials about how just healing their gut, clearing out the candida, they have reduced migraines. And like Kayla, who's with our team, she would have one migraine a week. And the fact that she gets them maybe every other month. I mean, think about, and it's not like you can plan when you're going to have a migraine. It would be just hit her and take her out, and losing one day a week to migraines would just, yeah. So quality of life is with that. So metabolic syndrome, that includes migraines, it includes PCOS, and we've done PCOS calls. Asthma, our leader, Michelle Rose, can talk to how gut health has improved her asthma. Depression, so that goes along with the mood. Type 2 diabetes. Well, we focus with Plexus, we're focusing on blood sugar control, gut health, and inflammation. So we know we help people with the blood sugar control. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is also a part of the metabolic syndrome, and improving gut health improves your liver function. It improves just the quality of how your body's digesting. And that's because when you consume food, the first place all those nutrients that you've eaten and digested goes to is to the liver. Like, the nutrients get passed through the gut lining, and all of our blood from our gut goes straight to the liver to then be processed and then spread out. I mean, that's why The liver is so important. And another one, GERD. And he talked about, this was also pretty exciting. He talked about the difference between GERD, which is gastrointestinal reflux disease, or gastrointestinal, Adrian? Oh, I have to look at it. Hang on real quick. Anyways, not intestinal, gastroenteric reflux disease. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the GERD, and then heartburn, and how this part that you shared, I got super excited about because it's what I've been trying to help people with too. Is that proton pump inhibitors? Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot with you guys. That's part of all these notes. So, but proton pump inhibitors are like your Prilosec, your omeprazole.
Yeah.
That's what doctors will prescribe when you're having heartburn symptoms. But it's not addressing really what's causing heartburn. And GERD can present like heartburn, but it's because for some reason the acid is starting to come up through the top of the stomach into the esophagus, and you can have like an acid pocket, he said, or just that the sphincter is weak and acid no longer stays in the stomach. So, but being given omeprazole, which is a proton pump inhibitor that actually changes the pH, the acidity of your stomach, it actually makes it less acidic. Again, doesn't solve the problem. It actually will make it so your body doesn't digest food like it's intended to do. And it's just a Band-Aid. And that's essentially what he said. And he said metformin also is just, he said both proton pump inhibitors and metformin are gut wreckers. And if you can, manage your blood sugars in other ways, you're gonna just overall help all your body symptoms. And so those things aren't meant, omeprazole was not meant to be given long term like it is now. I mean, I knew people when I was in my 20s were prescribed it. Our good friend Mary Springer, who I think she was one of our guest speakers one time with Michelle. I met her a couple of years ago. I mean, that's part of her story, is that she had heartburn in her late 20s and then developed anxiety, and she's a nurse. And so it wasn't until she got on these products that she was just alleviated of so many problems along with heartburn, because again, the proton pump inhibitor was not actually addressing the root cause of her symptoms. It was just covering it up. So
did anybody ever check have their liver checked out, or not their liver, their gallbladder?
Well, we have a gallbladder call that we've talked about, because it's so much of it, you can save your gallbladder if it's not too, if there hasn't been too many stones and that it hasn't started to have necrosis from the chronic inflammation. You can save a gallbladder from addressing the gut, because usually, I mean, that's why it's hyperactive, is because the gut isn't working like it's supposed to. So I'm going to put, so Susan has asked for, did I just disappear on you guys? I'm still here, right?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
there you go.
Susan asked for the PCOS recording, and I'll put, I think I have the gallbladder one on there too. So I'll wait till we're done, just because I don't want to, I don't know. Okay, bear with me while I hop away. I'm still here. I just got to get to my notes and get that for you all to save, so you have time to save it. So he talked a lot about, you guys can still hear me just fine, right?
Yes.
Okay. The main big thing was reduce stress as any ways you can, but also the more diverse your microbiome is, the better off you are. And he talked about how like some of the most diverse microbiomes are found from indigenous people of South Africa, who are hunters and gatherers, and they're out in nature, and they're not eating the processed foods. They're not giving antibiotic treatments from birth, and that they have studied like just all the benefits that have that perfect culture that their bodies, the signals, that diverse microbiome, what it does, and like how it will help reduce inflammation. I talked about how I pushed the wrong button.
Oh.
How if you have cortisol levels super high, that can make chronic inflammation going on, but then you counter that by having a diverse microbiome, and how plants have their own microbiome. And so when we eat plants, we're actually getting the bacteria that's in there that they live off of too. And so that's why consuming more vegetables can help you not only have a healthier gut, because your microbes in your gut are going to love all the prebiotics that's in the vegetables. It's going to love, come on, you're putting in more good bacteria that are naturally in those healthy plants. And so, oh, Arlen. Come on. Oh, wrong button. Just there. Okay, so I got here the gallbladder.
He's done.
I know. Yeah. So, and then I'll switch over. Let me put the PCOS one for you, Susan. But I've had somebody that I talked to and have helped actually with her gallbladder is gone, because a lot of times you're still going to have digestion issues when the gallbladder's gone. And that's because your body needs the gallbladder. I mean, we can live off without it, but we can also, people live a long time with
The gallbladder is actually an overflow for the liver.
Yeah, the bile.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Those were there. I put the PCOS link in there too for you. Oh, and ghrelin, and let's see what. So things that how the gut influences how much we weigh. And so he talked about genes. There's a gene component that you just can't avoid with weight, but also lifestyle plays a factor, amount of stress, and sleep loss. But again, stress was the overlying thing in this whole seminar I went to. Insulin and other hormones. And one thing that I found, like another big aha moment for me was when he talked about cortisol constantly in the system from being stressed, like whether it's stress from work or whether it's stress from being sick. We are developing cortisol resistance. Just like we have developed, people have developed insulin resistance. That's type 2 diabetes. Well, the cortisol resistance becomes a problem because it produces that chronic low-grade inflammation all the time. Because if our body is resistant to cortisol that we should have, that we're supposed to have at times during the day, there's natural fluctuations of cortisol. Just like when insulin is in our system all the time, we become insulin resistant. Cortisol is in our system all the time, we become cortisol resistant, and more gets pumped into our body, and then it just causes inflammation. And that's going to be it's going to be a new disease term. That's going to show up. And I don't know what it'll be called. It'll be called cortisol resistant syndrome. But they're going to start linking all the problems that long lasting cortisol, the inflammation is bringing in. So, but insulin and cortisol are two that pair together, so that affects weight. Ghrelin, you talked about ghrelin, and ghrelin is one I've talked about before on lives and on this call. But ghrelin, is a hormone that comes from our gut. The stomach cells actually release it, and it tells us when we're hungry. And I always remember that by saying ghrelin, it makes your stomach growl. So that is, ghrelin, it signals our brain to, that we're hungry. Well, leptin comes from our fat tissues, and they signal the brain that our fat cells are nicely well stocked, we don't need any more, and it's an appetite suppressant. And so if those two aren't signaling things correctly, then you have weight issues. And how you can help those signals work best is through having a healthy gut. And you talked about how the dysbiosis is when the gut is unhealthy, when it just doesn't have enough bacteria diversity, and there's other microbes living in there that shouldn't be living in there. So
Did he ever talk about the dysbiosis, and it's a film that covers up the good stuff?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
he said, yeah, the mucus lining, and so that's
Yeah.
where the Candida yeast can.
Mhm.
So he didn't talk about Candida yeast, but Candida overgrowth is where the yeast film is just taking up the good quality real estate that we have in our gut. So, and then about the vegetables, how eating fresh fruits and vegetables, you're eating the microbiome of those vegetables. That actually, he had found statistics of a number, like 15% of a person's microbiome comes from the vegetables that they eat. And so, we take probiotics to give the good bacteria that we want, the good strains that we want, but also those fresh vegetables, consuming them, especially if they're from a farm stand, or you go to the farmer's market, you're going to get a more diverse microbiome, more diverse good bacteria from those vegetables. And he talked a lot about, or he referred to the hygiene effect, or the farm effect. And so kids who grew up on farms have more diverse microbiomes and actually have less instances of asthma when they grow up than kids who grew up in cities. And kids who have older siblings also have less risk of asthma, because the older siblings are bringing the germs home from school before that kid has gone to school. And so you kind of want that petri dish effect in one way, to help again, we say build up their immune system, but it's building up their gut microbes. And so, and another thing about that farm effect and the hygiene effect is that they actually did a study where they had subjects stand in a room in front of a panel of scientist-looking people, and they were wearing white coats, and they were trained not to smile, not to give head nods or any positive affirmation to the subject. And there was a video camera too, and that person was put on the spot to talk about something, like right on the spot. So talk about a stressful situation, right? And the people who participated in this, the ones that were from cities, had higher stress indicators afterwards, going through their body, than the people who were from rural areas, from the farms. And that has to do with their microbes being more diverse in their gut. They have healthier guts, and so they could handle stress better. And so I thought that was cool, because from a rural town, I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's what the whole country tough comes from. So
Well, not only that, when you eat more vegetables, it's more nutrient dense, and that's what my diet is now, and I don't have to take insulin.
yes, that is fantastic. Yeah, and about that, like more nutrient dense and more raw ingredients, he talked about the 4 levels of processed foods. And so like level 1 is not processed at all, so raw vegetables, raw fruit. And then the next level is home processed, and so that's when you cook food at home, or you have frozen food, or dehydrated, and even canning at home. That whatever you can do at home, that's like the second level of processing food. And then level 3 is, his example was, the stuff that's canned at stores. So it's canned in metal cans under high heat. And once you get to that level, then there's really no gut health value at all. And then the 4th level is ultra processed, where he says just chemicals. So he said like Twinkies, like when it's just chemicals, it absolutely, has no health benefits. at all.
Non-food.
Yeah, he said it's not even food, it's just chemicals when it's at the ultra processed level. So yeah, but I mean, I could go on a whole lot more, but I want to respect everybody's time. And oh, one more thing I thought was really neat is that he talked about how because people started asking about meat, and because he hadn't talked much about meat. And I've been seeing a lot about this carnivore diet out there. I don't know if any of you have started to see that. And it just makes me cringe, kind of. And I've even seen, people who call themselves health professionals really just raving about just eat meat, and that's it. And how they'll say the oxalates that are in vegetables are what's causing us problems. And yeah, so somebody asked about like, well, what about eating meat? And the professor said that the professor said that meat does not have a microbiome at all. There should not be, bacteria. There's no bacteria living in our muscles, and that the only time that happens with meat is like if there's, has been exposure during the butchering process. So, and he said there was a study of when people ate hamburgers, that no matter what, when they ate a plain hamburger, inflammatory markers did go up in the people who ate the hamburgers. I said, but then when they added an avocado to that hamburger, that the inflammation did not occur. And so that led to a big, a good discussion with the groups about like, okay, well, just eat your good, healthy foods, eat your vegetables first, and then your body's prepped for, to fight off any inflammation from something else that you eat. And or it's just an example of how you should have everything in moderation, have a well-balanced diet, eat the rainbow, and have your meat too, but just to have it not be everything that you eat. And so yeah, and I mean, I haven't even talked about, like, because he was a neuroscience scientist, he talked a lot about the cognitive part too, but pretty much the gist of it was keep your stress under control as much as you can, eat your vegetables, have your gut be healthy. If it's, if you can't get enough vegetables in, then do what you can to, give your body still what it needs without the if you can't get the vegetables, find other ways to supplement it. And that's what, we do. Like, and with certain strains of probiotics, like you just want to have as much as you can, so it's not that you take a pill and you're good. No, you need to have the supplements of the probiotics. You need to have the vegetables that's giving it to you. It's holistic things. And on the probiotics, he said that this is a key point too that I want to help educate people with, is that if the product doesn't give the complete strain name and also the numbers associated with that strain, then it's not, you're not, well, with any supplement, you're not guaranteed of what you're getting, but it should, like, if it's making claims of, like, our Vital Biome, for instance, makes claims about it helps support mood and stress. And I looked on that label, and our Vital Biome does specify specific strains. So it says the genus species, and it gives the combination of letters and numbers at the end of that strain, specifying the specific type of probiotic in that product. And I'm going to email him because he said too that, if we have questions, email, but he talked about how he bought a probiotic from a company and then took it to his lab because they have a $30,000, equipment that will break down a sample and give exactly what strains are in it. And so he said he was just curious about this one company making claims and wanted to see what probiotic, if the probiotic they were making claims for was actually in it. And it didn't even have any probiotics in it, any bacteria in that one. And so he was very PC about it, and he wasn't like, bad mouthing any company, but I'm going to email him and find out because he also talked about, he's like, supplement companies can't make claims unless they have the research to back it, and they'll get in trouble if they're making claims and it's not validated. And so that's one thing that I like about Plexus, is that we've been around. If that we are taught which claims we can make and how the vital biome is very much validated, that it helps with stress and mood. And so anyways, but yeah, I'm gonna email them and find out what company that was. Along with some other cool graphics we had. So, but yeah, do anybody have questions? I just rattled off and jumped around a whole bunch, I'm sure. But 7 hours went by so fast. And the last time I went to one of these talks, it was about inflammation, and the same thing happened. It just went by so fast, and I loved it all. Crickets. Copy those recordings if you want from the chats. I put the PCOS one and the gallbladder one. I can put the other topics that I have are migraines. I have recordings for mental health one that we did, and let me see, thyroid issues. Yeah. He did mention he did have thyroiditis on, which is just an inflamed thyroid, kind of like Hashimoto's. He did have it on one of his slides today, but he didn't go into too much about that. But the overall, every system of the body is impacted by our gut, because that's how it keeps us alive. How our body creates more cells turnover is just from what we consume and how well it digests. So of course it plays a factor. Well, thank you all for being on here. We're going to move over more into our business coaching side, and so everybody's welcome to stay. And let's go into how about any business wins that anybody has to share? It is the 9th of October. We have a lot of month left to make things happen. Anybody have any good news? Yeah, Beverly, do you want to share, or I can share?
I don't even know how.
To,
I don't know how to make this work.
You're working.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
oh, okay.
Please share.
Yeah. So, yeah, my kids are interested, and I will be able to go back. I'm leaving on the 27th of this month to go to Colorado. So, I'm hoping to be able to share a little bit more with my youngest daughter, who has Hashimoto. So they just put her on metformin, and I am really going to work hard on getting her off of metformin, because metformin is what started my whole problem to begin with. So I'm really excited about that. And I met a lovely lady here in town the other day, so I'll be sharing with you tomorrow about her, and hopefully she will be joining us. And I'm very excited about that. And I'm looking forward to getting a really good start. I'm going to work on some family members while I'm back there. I'm going to have quite a few of them around me, so I'm going to take advantage of this.
Yep.
And so I'm going to take some product with me.
Awesome. Let me pause, stop recording, and then re-record. I don't know what Michelle wants me to do.